this video, we're going to look at some of the processing and calculation options prior to entering the simulator. Now, this is a file from one of the tutorials, and it's called the seal trim optimization file. And we see that prior to optimizing, we do encounter a problem somewhere around the 75 to 80 point mark that we are first colliding into the part because we have collision enabled, the dark red, and then we're running out of reach. Now, prior to entering simulation, we do have some options. If we go into the options page in simulation, we have three options that are of interest. The first one is calculate upon startup of long toolpaths. Prior to entering simulation, by default, we do a calculation, a kinematic calculation, so that we know if there are any issues, if there's any reach limits, etc. The next option, therefore, if we check this, calculate upon startup of long toolpaths, what this means is that irrespective of the length of the toolpath, we will always calculate. Meaning, if you have a very large file and the calculate may take several minutes, maybe even into the tens of the minutes, it'll always calculate. If we uncheck this option, what will happen is we will not calculate unless somebody in Simulate clicks on the calculate button. Let's leave this on for now. And then we have two other options, which are stop on issues. The first one is stop simulation on robotic errors. Therefore, if there's any errors encountered, when we have the play button on, the robot will stop to tell you that there's a problem at this specific point. And the next one is in a similar manner. It's a stop simulation on collisions. Therefore, if there's a collision encountered, the simulator is stopped. So let's leave these options as is. And now let's go ahead and click on simulate. So we enter into the simulator, and there is a calculation that's done, and there's even a collision check calculation that is done as well. Therefore, it does take a little bit longer to load up the file, but once it is loaded up, we will see that all the calculations have been done, and we have a very precise understanding of where the issues are and what they are. So if we look at operation 1, we see that there's an X. A red X, and the red X means there's a problem with that operation. It's not a go, it's a no-go. And if we hover over it, we see that there's a message that says out of reach 0.78. So we see that on 0.78 there is a reach issue. Now if we click on play, we'll see that the robot will start simulating, and at a point it'll stop. Well, we are at 0.78. And there is a simulation, and therefore we see that the line 78 is marked in red. We see that the simulating bodies are highlighted in red, and at the same time, if we look at the robot, we see that it is completely out of reach. That's because we haven't optimized. Well, in this specific instance, we had not detected simulations prior to starting our simulation. That's because in Calculate, we have some options. We can calculate with collision detection or without collision detection. When the files are small, collision detection does not take too long to calculate. Therefore, it is recommended to calculate with collision detection, especially for trimming or sealing type applications. And when I selected with collision detection, we saw that now automatically the whole section where we have a collision is highlighted in red. Therefore, a calculation is done prior to simulation, and we know explicitly all the points that are in collision. So those points are highlighted in red, as well as the corresponding section on the slider bar is also painted in red, so that you can quickly come to the area of interest and see where the collisions are occurring. Now, when we have with collision detection activated, calculations do take a little bit longer. However, the robot is, the simulator is able to give you a more accurate indication of where the issues are at and what the issues are. And in this case, because we have collision stop on collisions set to yes, we see that the simulation does stop at the first point of collision. Now, because we have collision calculations active, we see another logo here that tells us there's collisions. Therefore, we see here out of reach, and we see that we have collisions here. Now, we're leaving calculation with collision detection enabled. Now we exit the simulator. I'll go back into optimization and we will optimize this file. We'll go ahead and remove all the main errors. And now if I go ahead and launch the simulator again, it'll launch with a calculation and it'll check for collisions. And now we see that there are no red sections, therefore there are no collisions left, and we see that the state of the operation is a green check mark, meaning it's a go. And now I can go ahead and simulate, and all the issues have been removed. Therefore, based on the options for calculate with and without collision checking, you'll be able to see the errors of your operation, as well as if there is a collision as well, with a separate icon on the side. And you'll see with a red band on the slider here, as well as the individual points colored in red if you have collisions. Again, just to recap, this is where you set if you want to calculate with or without collisions. Without collisions is significantly faster. However, the collision detection is not calculated beforehand. It is only calculated point by point during simulation.